So this codev experience was a very unique kind of experience for me, because this idea of bringing people together to help them learn something, to help them co-create something, was something which I had read about, but only with regard to the students. So I would always think that in order to help children learn, we can make them work together, but only for a very brief period of time, for an hour or so. But this idea of keeping people together for months and years all together was something which I was not familiar with earlier initially. So for a few months after my getting into the codev experience, I continued thinking that we were given a job, we were asked to write something because we had to create a course. So I thought after writing a piece or two, probably I would have nothing else to do in the codev. But little by little, through the process of writing something and through the process of getting feedbacks and suggestions of the people, I realized that this was something which would continue, and this was not one kind of one thing at a time kind of a job, and we would have to remain in touch with each other, and this is how we were going to learn. Now this was something which I realized later, much later, right? So the first time when Nivedita asked me to attempt something on multilingualism, I was very excited because I took it very easily, I took it very casually. I thought, okay, I would write it the way I used to write articles, right? But when I actually started writing it, I realized that this was not going to be an easy task, and especially through the discussions with Nivedita and other members of the codev, I soon realized that academic writing was something which I was going to attempt for the first time in my life, probably, because it was going to be a long piece. It should have all the important perspectives and all the important points which are related to multilingualism. So in the course of writing that piece on multilingualism, I really got to know that this is what is known as academic writing. First time I did academic writing only after joining the codev process. And after many revisions and modifications of that write-up, when I finally got appreciation for that writing, it was like, you can imagine, it was like touching the highest peak of any mountain. So the kind of joy that codev gave me was something which I had never imagined before. So this whole idea of what an academic writing and academic reading is, I got to know only after joining the codev process, right? And remaining in touch with each other, continue the discussions, and in the process also creating something which is going to be used as a course is thrilling in itself, right? That you are creating a book, you are creating a course material which others are going to be using, which others are going to be benefited by. Now this is something which makes you feel that you are going to become immortal. Immortal in the sense that your creations, your learning are going to become a part of others' learning process. So this is something which thrills me about codev.
I was not a student of language, but because of interest, I thought of getting into understanding how children learn language, how language happens in the brain, and all these theories used to sort of create a lot of curiosity in my mind. So that was the reason that I joined this process. So it was completely a new dimension for me when I came into co-development. 1 year was complete struggle. I could not comprehend, and then I could not understand what was happening. At times I used to feel that I should not be a part of co-development also, because nothing was happening. I mean, there was so much of input coming in my brain, but my brain was unable to process the entire thing. But after a year I realized that there were a lot of things which actually happened, and my brain started processing those things, where I started seeing that a child can learn a language the way he or she learns at home. So there was a connect of first language as well as second language acquisition. So language does not happen as it happens in bits and pieces. So I realized that my brain also had a silent period where I was not able to understand what was happening, but it was somehow taking a lot of things inside. And after a year, I realized that those things started reflecting. I started talking, I started sharing my thoughts, I started writing about what all I understood. So I started understanding how a child learns a language, how different it is in school and how different it is at home. So whenever a child is of say 1.5 years old and a child starts talking at home, the mother feels so happy when the child is also only making mistakes and is talking. But when the child in school starts making mistakes with the second language, the teacher starts scolding the child and does not give that space that he or she gets at home. So I think that connect has to be made between this home language and the school language. That environment is a very important part in the entire process. That if we have an input-rich environment, the child feels free to make mistakes, errors, and is given enough opportunity for taking in the language. If that kind of an atmosphere is created even in schools, I think children will learn language, acquire language exactly the way they acquire language at home. So there has to be a connect between the mother tongue and the second language that we want to give to the child, whether it is English, whether it is Hindi, whether it is French, whatever language we want to give to the child, there has to be a link. And the second thing that I want to say is about the second thing that I would like to say is that in our brain many things are there. So there is this language acquisition device, and it gets activated when there is a lot of input rich environment. If there is no environment, how can a child start picking up language? So this gets activated when we receive a lot of information from our surrounding. And the other thing is that a child has to have some interest in that particular thing. If there is no interest, if we are not able to create that interest in the child, we are not giving space to the child in schools, the child will not pick up that language. So our language rich environment has to be there, so that second language acquisition also takes place exactly like the first language acquisition.
My codev journey has been very, very interesting, full of confusions, a lot of learning experience, and how else, and a very emotional connect with the entire group, and of course the subject also. I like to begin by saying how we got into this whole codev. When the idea of codev initially, when we had joined, was not there. So we started with a lot of trainings in Rajasthan. So we began our trainings. Nivedita has been a fantastic person in walking through us and all. Utter confusions regarding what is LAS, what is Chomsky, what is whole language approach. We had no clue. Does reading and writing go together? What are the skills basically? So we all grapple with these questions in the first training. Subsequently, we began reading something more on the subject and all. We started with the NCF. and we kind of went forward and we did some very nice, interesting training. Of course, it was Nivedita in the main lead and all, and we were supporting her, but we were kind of, she was training both of us in the future that we could kind of be as resource persons in English language in Rajasthan. Then suddenly, all of a sudden, the whole idea of co-development came, and we had no idea what co-development meant or co-creation meant. All we knew that we had to get together and do something together in, take the work of English language forward and update ourselves so much or capacitate ourselves so much so that people from the university would be there as mentors, and we ourselves had to take up the lead work in Rajasthan.
So, the moment I joined co-development, I got completely immersed into the process, and since then I started thinking on that particular line. So if you ask me, I would call co-development as a real learning process. This, I think, is because it's a connection between the theory as well as the practice, and this is something I could not even find in my college days. I mean, this is the reason I think I call it a real learning process. And what we do is that, we read, we discuss, we seek help from each other, we share our ideas with each other, we gather experiences from the field, we make our own understanding stronger, all together making it a creative learning process.
Having studied literature, I was not very acquainted with the terms and concepts of education. I was aware, had some understanding about environment, print-rich classrooms, whole language, and the pedagogical aspect, but not in detail, and also didn't have any idea how it would work out practically. So, not having dealt with kids and teachers, it was a little challenging for me, because my concepts were not that clear that I could convince the teachers or and make the children understand. My understanding evolved after a lot of engagement and involvement in the schools with the teachers and the students. I developed a sound conceptual understanding of the various things that contribute in acquiring a language. Being a part of the codev has helped me in this process. I realized the nuances I was missing out on. The discussion, module preparation, readings, other work being a part of the codev, of which has enriched my work in the field. It gave me a theory for the practices which I have built upon and also used creatively. The work in the field has helped me in developing an understanding about the teaching learning processes, the difficulties, the challenges, what would work, what wouldn't, and it is much easier said than done. For example, if I had to, it's easier to say that the teacher needs to dramatize a story and narrate it, but when I actually tried to do it in class, I had to work with the teacher at several levels. The first one being I had to help her overcome her hesitation, develop confidence in speaking English, had to prepare several stories and give demos along with her in the class, and then the actual process started.
Basically, I found over the period of time that we are talking about how language gets produced here in codev group. So it is not the traditional approach that works rote learning and so on and so forth, but until and unless teacher knows the pedagogy, how child learns the language, he or she cannot do justice with the children. So we have got good responses also in over the period of time. In Chhattisgarh, government has started to give in-service teachers training of the language, and they have given 5 days to give the course of language, which is appreciable enough. So I see ample opportunities in coming time.
What happened inside the classroom was, since I was speaking English and I don't know how to teach well, So I don't have so much of good pedagogy, you know. So I started teaching in a very traditional method, and children are also scared because they don't understand what I'm saying. So they often say, "Ma'am, can I go for bathroom, toilet?" And then I used to say, "Yeah, you can go." And they go, they never come back. So I was wondering why they're not going. So during break, I go to them and say, "You didn't come back," and they just smiled at me. So the next time I go to another class, one student at the back, she was asking me, "Ma'am, can I go to the toilet?" And I thought that was a trick again. So I said, no, you can't go, you have to sit. So I was teaching, and then she started crying, it seems. I was not aware of that. So her friend said, "Ma'am, she's crying." And I said, "What?" And then I realized that I was too strict on her, and then I immediately apologized. And I said, "I'm really sorry, you can go, but please come back." And then she went and come back. So it was, you know, like a big experience for me, because then I'm integrating two things, like how to manage classroom and how to, you know, like teach English as such. So after that, I started questioning myself that, you know, like if I'm teaching something that children are not able to relate to, what kind of pedagogy should I take up so that they'll be able to learn in a fun and easy way?
When it came to the Pondicherry specific context, that helped us a lot in designing modules for the local context. So maybe initially the first few modules that created were not too satisfactory, but when you look at the journey of creating modules by the Pondicherry team, I think this codev experience has helped us a lot in refining a module to a large extent. Now we can safely say that, you know, we are quite experienced in creating modules.
And reflecting back on my initial days, I came up with an understanding that I shall observe and learn things. But soon I was bombarded with a lot of jargons like VTF, follow-up, workshop, identification of the teachers. I can easily recall the lonely man's land I was thrown into when I was asked to choose a subject to work in future. While others had already been with some specialization, I chose the subject English, which was out of my quest. It was in AMM for the first time I came with an understanding of things, practicalize of dealing with teachers. These all might be some setbacks, but with the kind of attachment I have with the children and the support of the team, I believe I had made a good decision. At present, we are involved in the research work and also supporting to the Rajin Premji School in class 7 on creating an environment where children can learn and speak language. It is recently from 2-3 weeks ago I became a part of English language codev, which I was waiting for so long time. Till now I just have a very small expectations from the codev that I will try to learn and implement as much as possible for me.
Okay, in your talk you talked about co-development, and I was wondering if you could summarise perhaps for people who maybe aren't sure what that means. Yeah. You could summarise what that is in the context of the projects that you've been working on.
Yeah. So a co-development process is a bottom-up process in the sense that the choice of what to do, the choice of how to do, the choice of when to do, and the choice of how you create knowledge out of it remains with the group. Although the general area of what we are supposed to do and what we are going to do in the education sector is decided. We want a just, equitable, sustainable society. We want children who are learning in a constructive manner. We want classrooms where there is joy and learning both. So we all agree upon these ideals, and with these ideals in mind of a democratic society where every child questions what is happening, where every child thinks reflectively, where there's collaborative work happening, where there is creativity and space for innovation. This is what we all agree upon. So within that larger broad framework, to decide what you want to do in your own subject area. Naturally, if you have that chance and have that group, it becomes a very creative process.
No, it sounds very interesting. Okay. I know in your talk, I mean, what you've just been talking about is, as you said, very much a bottom-up approach, and there's the suggestion in your talk looks at how top-down models continue to dominate. Do you see a place for a top-down approach? And if so, where do you see this approach fitting in?
Yeah, there is a place for a top-down approach and a bottom-up approach. It can't be bottom-up by itself. It can't be top-down by itself. We have to marry the two, and there has to be an understanding in doing that. There is a place for thinking about the larger principles of what you are doing and how you are doing. And that happens in our co-development. People who are leading the process do think about the larger principles, and if we are somewhere stepping out of the larger principles and the area in which we are working, we do have to get back in a structured manner. Secondly, processes need to be structured. And there the top-down approach does come in. Somebody has to, if we decide that every Friday we are going to have a teleconferencing for discussing our areas of work, and suppose we have created modules and we have piloted the modules and we want to discuss them every Friday, if we have decided that, somebody has to anchor the whole thing. So top-down doesn't go away just because bottom-up starts. Bottom-up is autonomous, and any development, any reflection is, after all, we said that it happens through motivation, and we gave a very large amount of importance in this conference also to motivation and personal choice. So those are the things that come from bottom-up. While structures and how things should happen, whether our philosophy, which we agreed upon initially, is continued with our practice, should also be monitored to an extent. It is not a monitoring process in the sense of the usual understanding of monitoring, but just to understand where we are and how we go from there.
Okay. So yes, it's not monitoring the teachers themselves to make sure they're doing the right things. It's more about the process is working and is working how it should do.
Yeah.
Okay.